Again, if you can make your way into the sanctuary, that would be great. Does anybody need a handout that didn't get one? Raise your hand if you need one and didn't get one. Let's come back there. Great. These will just help you to see what's up on the screen. So if you have great eyesight, great. If not, this will help you, hopefully. Thank you to the council and to the finance committee for all the work they've continued to do in work for hope and kind of looking toward our future and what the possibilities and opportunities are. Andrew Holman, our council president, was going to be here this morning, but his entire household has influenza. And so he decided not to come and share that with us today. So we're very thankful for that. But we're thankful to Elizabeth Imperio, who is a council member who's going to lead us through this today. And we will open with prayer and then kind of go through some of the notes that council has put together. And then we'll have time for questions and answers at the end and kind of talk through where we have what we've been doing for the last couple of years as we've been looking at future opportunities for us here at Hope, and then kind of where we are now, and then what directions we're going to go. So with that, I know we just spent an hour in worship, but let's pray. Gracious God, we give you thanks for this day and this gathering of amazing people. We pray that you would help us not to hold on so much to our buckets, but that we might set it down so we can grab the light of your life, that we might share it with the world and with the Gallatin Valley here and in this place. So Lord, we pray that you would be with us in this time of gathering, guide our conversations, entrust our prayers to you, help us to discern where you would want to lead us, and we entrust this time into your care. In your name we pray. Amen. Elizabeth. No, closer, closer.
Like I said, thank you all for coming. Having you guys all engaged in this conversation is super important to this discussion. The council really wants to make sure that everybody is fully aware of what is going on. We want to be really transparent, and we want to make sure you know that your voices are heard. We don't want our feelings as we move forward in these processes of deciding what's going on really covering our budget. So we are spending down our cash on hand. So that we need to come up with some solutions for how we can reduce our expenses as well as increase our income. Both of those things really have to happen right now. Council has been working on this issue for well over a year. We've been doing our best to share this information with the congregation in a way that is both informative and not discouraging. We want to make sure that we keep our focus on all of the great things that are happening here at Hope and all of the things that we're doing here in our valley. Which then brings us to slide 2. So, one of the reasons that we really need to have this discussion now and figure out what we're doing moving forward is because of this. We are spending down our cash on hand. Where am I here? I just want to make sure I follow my notes. So this slide here is really not meant to scare everybody, but this is just a really good visual of what's happening on right now. It is scary, but keep in mind this is a projection. Ken's been doing a really good job of doing our finances and tracking it. This is, again, projected. So this is based on taking our 2023 expenses month to month and then taking our offerings that have been coming in and the other income we've got from building these fees and putting that up with a 2% increase. This doesn't account for ways that we've already been coming up with to reduce our budget, things like the solar, we're going to reduce our electric bill by 30%. We've got now the kitchen is now certified so that we can increase our income coming in from that. We've already seen an increase in giving in the past several months. So this is a little alarming, but at the same time, it's mostly to prompt us to remember that we do need to take action now. We already have so many wonderful things going in that can change the direction of this. Next slide. One of the things that's come up from the Finance Committee is the proposal of selling the land. So there was reasons that they presented this was because this is something that we can do here in the near future. It's something that can happen quickly. A lot of the other ideas for increasing revenue and decreasing things, they're going to take a little more time. So this was one of the ones they presented because it can happen relatively soon. It would allow for our church to possibly pay off the mortgage. Depending on what the sales are, but that's one of the motivations. It would help us pay off the mortgage, and paying off the mortgage, we're going to reduce our monthly expenses. This is not going to completely meet where the deficit has been in the past year, like that month-to-month deficit, but it would help close that gap. So that was one of the motivations. And the other thing is it would help us pay off that mortgage before we have our mortgage rates adjusted in the end of 2025. Is that when it's readjusted? July. So mortgage rates are really high right now. They are projected to come down, but that's all uncertain. So if we could eliminate the mortgage before we have that uncertainty of what the next mortgage rate adjustments would be, that would be kind of a nice thing to kind of reduce some of that uncertainty. In looking at proposals to sell part of the property, we're looking at 2 different lots. We can go. You go to the next one. Yep. So Hans was very generous. Hunter came out and he works for Morrison Marley, and we want to thank him and Morrison Marley for generously donating their time to survey the lots. In that survey, he broke it down into 2 different sections. Our front section is at area 119. The total acreage from that section is 2.55 acres, and then our back lot is that area between Graff and Congregational, and that one is 2.85 acres. So, and this is a little hard to see, but this, and you guys can take a look at your forms, but you can kind of see those black lines that are broken down. But let's go to the next slide. Here's that front property along 19th there. It outlined in blue, and I apologize for the colorblind people if you can't see the red and blue on there. But that's where that property that we're looking at. It's that 19th to the east. That it doesn't include that whole property because
Elizabeth, would you just say again what those small group meetings are going to be about?
So the small group meetings are going to be an opportunity for us to share our ideas, our concerns, about our concerns about selling the land, our ideas for what we can do for our finances for the congregation. It's a chance for us to really kind of dig deep a little bit in this conversation. Did I miss anything? Okay.
And Ken, you might have this. Is it accurate that we have the mortgage is about $2 million outstanding, and our monthly payments are $20,000 to $25,000? 17,000.
We currently owe, as of December, I just had it here, there was $2,023,687.58.
And you said 17,000 some?
17,255 is our monthly mortgage payment on this property.
And that could get reset next year when,
It's going to get reset.
more likely than not, a higher interest rate.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's actually, I look back at my notes from when I talked to Thrivent, it's in November of 2025, that rate gets reset. So we've got a year and a half. So.
And if I recall from November, there was at least speculation, not any definitive, that one or two of these land sales, the parcels, might yield $1 million to $2 million and be able to pay that down.
It could be like maybe $2 million each, or
Oh, okay.
$1 million something.
Even better. And just as a point of reference, for those that have been involved with the church here, in 2007, when we went to our final bid for this building, we had a bit of a shock, as much of Bozeman and the Gallatin Valley had, of construction costs, and it came in $2 million higher than all of our budgets had been, and we had to make a decision at that point. Do we go forward? Do we stop it? And what's the, sort of the faith, if you want to say? And we went forward. We'd raised almost $4 million at that time in commitments, and the rest was in the mortgage here. It'd be wonderful to get rid of that mortgage and then see what potential programs we can expand.
As a parishioner, one of my frustrations with this process has been kind of understanding how deficient we are from a budget standpoint, how much money we need to raise. Again, we just had some discussion, but nothing's really on paper that says how much are we short coming up on a per month basis, per year basis? How much do we want to get out of this sale? How much do we think some of these other ideas that were presented could add to the finances for the church to help, I'll use the word stabilize us to where we spend the money that we have coming in and whatnot. As we work through this process of these meetings and eventually a vote, is there, similar to the handout, you provided some tables, and again, to your best ability to try to show that without it being so complicated, nobody can understand it. Do you understand my question?
It sounds like there's about 5 questions.
But the biggest one, I think, is how much do we want to get, and how much are we short in relation to the budget that we have, and then eventually a new budget that's going to come up.
Well, as you can see, in the weekly newsletter, I always put like the previous months where we're at for offerings, and now there's a little column for budget or for building use, and then what our budget is. And we are running, overall expenses are running a little bit behind budget, which is invoices to groups that use the buildings. In the past, it's kind of been, oh, you know, pay us when you want, or pay us what you want, or something to that effect. So we're trying to implement a little more stringent accounting guidelines, if you want to think of it that way, around that. And I think that will help. Right now, our kitchen, we're starting kind of slow, just kind of getting our feet wet, how is this going to work, you know, that sort of thing. But I think that will ramp up over time because there's quite a need for it in Gallatin County. Doesn't answer your question, Dean, on how much, but I mean, I could like grab some numbers out of the air. Yeah. I can try and come up with some numbers for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, good morning. I was on the council, I don't know, for about 8 years or something, a few years back. And I want to just compliment the current council for really taking this on. I mean, we struggled with it all the time that I was on the council. And we always had somewhere around $200,000 and we'd watch it go down, and then maybe something good would happen. Somebody would leave a bunch of money or stocks or something. I think it's really, really important, and it's what Dan mentioned a moment ago, is to get rid of that mortgage, or as much of it as we possibly can, and particularly important to get rid of it before it goes up in next November. That has been the burden on this organization, this congregation, since the very beginning. So I think, as I said, I want to compliment the council for all of the array of things, and you did a beautiful job presenting the way that you folks are working on it, and I really appreciate that. But I think we really have to seriously consider the land piece once you have the numbers that are associated with it. I think that's the answer to the mortgage piece.
So on one of the slides, it said that the current offerings account for 77.34% of the monthly budget, and I'm wondering, so that's like 23% a week or month that the budget is in deficit. Am I understanding that correctly? Okay, so then that's the possibility that maybe some people, and so it would, like, a question that would be, how many people need to be upping perhaps their giving by 23% to help with that deficit? So that's a question that I have, but I also have other things that I don't want to get too much, so that's what I'm going to, anybody want to ask?
So, a couple of things on your comment. Thank you for that. Note that that's budget amount, not expenses as well. So last, when was it? March, May, sometime when we had our annual meeting, we approved a budget. And so that's all based on that. And the way that works is we kind of try and figure out what budgeted items are going to come what month. So
Just two questions. Number one, is there a reason historically that so much land was purchased, like some grand plan for a cathedral on the back lot or something? And so somebody can answer that, and then I'll give you the mic. And then second question, will you look at parceling the parcel so maybe the solar array doesn't have to get moved, or is it like one chunk only? So those are the two questions, and I'll hand the mic over.
I'll try to speak for council as best I can. Yes, I think it's going to reflect on what the interests are. That's the step to go talk with realtors and other groups. I mean, I'd love to see some way for us to sell at least some of this land that's not so consumptive. This is part of exploring those ideas and seeing what we can do with this. So yes, if possible, I think is what we want you guys to know what we're looking at, because I think there's been some fear that like, oh my gosh, it's going to be this, and we wanted it to be abundantly clear, like this is actually what we're currently considering. But yeah, of course, we're going to take all the options that we can consider.
Let me try to answer your other question. And just for those that might not know me, I'm Dan Larson. My wife Deb and I have been members here for 27, 28 years now. And I was on council at the time we acquired the property. And then together with Dick, he and I co-led the whole process, if you want to say, from strategic planning, long-range planning, programming, financing, design, construction of this facility. So have a little bit of background experience. The land was one of those things that came up to the church from a member that had some of this farmland, and a 20-acre parcel was available. We didn't have a plan necessarily of exactly how to use it, but it was already subdivided. We bought it for $320,000 that we had to raise money over several years. We thought that was a lot of money for 20 acres of ground. And we actually had set a goal to pay it off before we started the process of designing the church. And just to give you an idea, a little bit trivia fact, the original 20 acres was right next to Grace, the first 20 acres that side. And eventually, over various things, we ended up swapping over to here onto Graff, a little separation from Grace, better access and various things. We had to give away basically about 2.5 acres for the firehouse. That was part of the approval process with the city. You also lose some acreage on right-of-ways in the streets and various things. Had we had 10 or 12 acres, we could have designed and done the church on that. We knew the front acreage on the other side of the little creek here in front of the memorial garden was a difficult construction, design, various things. So there were early ideas, but nothing firm. And the acreage back here was sort of excess, we don't know. So that's where we ended up. And just, again, frame of reference, we get to the construction side, and all of a sudden we have a $2 million increase in the budget to do it, because construction costs were going crazy all through the Gallatin Valley. Now today, we probably couldn't build this for double what we did back then, but and we'd raised about $4 million or commitments from Congregational members. We sold the Grand Avenue Church for $1 million. We mortgaged the balance, and we've paid off about not quite half of that mortgage since 2008.
I'll just make my wife would say that I'm loud. I say that I project my voice well. Back to earlier comment, I think it would be helpful. I know when I was on council that walking that line of being transparent with the congregation, but not trying not to scare people. And real numbers sometimes are scary. But to look at, and I appreciate the comment of to see a year's worth of, okay, here's our giving, here's our facilities use monies, a column, and here, basically monthly, here's our giving, here's our use income, here's the budgeted expenses, here are the real expenses that we had each month, and here's the difference. And just so we have those real numbers, because then we can think about, okay, if we get rid of 17,000 of mortgage, it's not going to solve the entire problem. It's going to make it a whole lot less frightening. But I think now may be the time for us to see more of those hard numbers. This is the reality of where we are, and okay, here's the real numbers, and let's make some choices and decisions.
Yeah, we want to be abundantly clear, like selling this is not a one and done. It's going to take that curve and make it a little flatter. But we have to dig deep and come up with lots of strategies, not to just eliminate our expenses, but also increase what's coming in. This is a full pull from the congregation here. This isn't just a one-time thing. And I really commend the church staff for doing what they could to reduce the expenses as much as they could. Like when we brought the budget to the congregation back in May, there was nothing more to pull out. They really did a great job, and then working within that budget as well, they've done a really, really great job. So, as a business, you don't want to like approve a budget that doesn't have your expenses, but we have to keep, it's our staff, it's our lights, we couldn't pull anything else off. So they did a really great job with that.
I have just one little detail that I would love. I really like that you're showing those figures for our budget, but I have a feeling that a lot of people are forgetting that our financial year is not the calendar year. And if you could include that when you say, financial year, this month to this month, that I'm just guessing that might be helpful for people.
And I think maybe in small group discussions, if that kind of information will be helpful for people to have, it'd be great. I didn't want to bog anybody down in numbers and have us sitting here through a financial lecture about what's going on with church. It really was just a way to illustrate that this is a conversation we can't push off another 6 months or another year. We need to have this conversation now.
Hey, Steve, I will say that every council meeting, I have a chart that has budget versus expenses for like the whole year. So if you want to see that, I'll pull up my computer and show it to you.
As I'm listening to the discussion today, I'm thinking about our sermon this morning of what are we willing to put down or to let go of in order to hold Christ's light. And I think, it's always, as we think about the sale of the property, and obviously it's very hard to let go of property, you don't get it back, but is holding on to property our mission? So that was a very timely to our sermon today.
I was just thinking about adding to the conversation that, where the firehouse is going to be, and then the property below that would be, I would support selling that and getting as much as we could to pay off the mortgage and everything. And if we had to rally with that selling of that portion with the congregation to pay it completely off without having to sell the area over here, because because the vision this morning we got from the Creation Care meeting is we need to hold on to our green spaces and to plant trees and to do to keep it green and to keep areas green and for the birds and everything. So if we could rally and sell that portion and pay it off and keep the other space for green, that would be cool.
Okay, so I'm going to add to that, and then I'm wondering if there's a way to, in light of that, care committee team that we went to this morning, Um, sorry, I just lost my train of thought, but carbon sequestration. So then that brings up the question to me of, is there the possibility of an organization such as Hope applying for and being considered for a grant that would, from large organizations such as MSU, for example, and that a lot of us know about, and that would allow for some type of carbon sequestration. So that's my question.
I don't have the answer to that. This is why we're having these small group discussions. We want these ideas brought to us, and please, throwing a bunch of ideas at us is great, but if our congregation can help bring those answers, bring the questions, bring some of those answers and that information to these small group discussions, help us explore that process. I look at that backspace and I think about all the amazing things that we could do for food insecurity in our community. I also know that we have to really make some hard decisions right now. So I would love that to be an answer, personally. Like I said, this wasn't a sales pitch from council to sell land. This is an informative discussion, but we want all these ideas. But with those ideas, we also need to be able to say, is this doable? Can we let's start moving forward and not just talking about ideas, but let's start getting some information together so we can have those discussions and explore it. So again, bring this to the small group discussions. That's why we're going to bring it out to these smaller groups over the next, 4 meetings, so that we can all kind of share this information and share ideas in spaces that feel a little, really supportive. I hope everybody feels supported to share their thoughts now, because I'm sure whatever happens at the end of this process, some people are not going to be super excited about, and we want to make sure that we don't have any hard feelings in this church, because this really is about being very transparent and supportive of everybody's thoughts and ideas.
I too have been a member around here a long time, more like 40 years or something like that. I'm Janie Groseth. I think that there are first of all, I really like the plan of the meetings, the small groups, the coming back together, the council, the things you laid out. I think that's super. I'm all about the potential of selling the land. Where I would go with that, though, is to say, how can we partner? And Judy, you were just mentioning that with the sequestration. But what are some other organizations, agencies, whatever in the community that we could partner with and think about using our parking lot to support that during the week? That's just one example, but I think there's ways to partner on things rather than just a one-off of a new whatever it is on whatever part of the land it is. So that is going to take some investigation in the community, and I think some of you can help with that, or we can help with that. The second thing is, while all of that is going on, I'd like to see us also do a deep dive into our own congregation. Because of COVID, because of the wonderful opportunity, because Rolf is home with a knee up in the air, I wasn't at church today. I was on Zoom. Because of that, we've lost face-to-face. And so I'd like to do a deep dive into our own congregation, and if we were at home and one of the kids wasn't showing up for dinner, we'd find out where the heck they were. And, let's figure out, where are we? And maybe that is another way to build ourselves up, is with some outreach and some strategy to engage some folks who we're not seeing every Sunday. And then finally, there's also a question about how are we being fed by the ministry? And that's another whole issue than the finances. But when I'm out there in the world with my hair on fire over everything that goes on, how can we as a ministry do more to help us walk that walk when we're out in the world? And certainly we're doing that. We're feeding the hungry. We're doing youth things. We're doing other things. But there are some things that maybe need some discussion and some spiritual guidance that maybe we could strategically take on as well, that then makes us more meaningful, more engaging to our congregation and more involved. Once you're more involved, you give in different ways. So to me, as we go through with these other meetings, maybe there's some other aspects that we can talk about that go along with that, not to diminish that, but really to support it underneath.
Hi, I'm Alice Jones, and I was also on the steering committee when we built this place. And it's very clear that the council has delved into the potential option to look at property as a mechanism to raise funds for our mortgage. And I think the mortgage was one of the biggest elephants we have to deal with. But I'm interested in knowing what other potential options has the council looked into or are kind of on your list to look into, because I believe this valley does have lots of potential for us to pursue.
Reached out to somebody in the city about the possibility of purchasing or leasing the property. We've had a couple ideas, but and council, I guess, this was presented by the financial committee. They've actually been meeting monthly to discuss, right, monthly, to discuss ways that we can kind of work on this. So a lot of this has been coming from the financial committee, and they've explored a couple other ideas, and this is the one that was kind of the most timely, which is why that we're having this discussion now. Does anybody from the financial committee want to kind of share some of their thoughts they've had?
Well, it's me. No, there's actually other people on the financial committee, not just me, I'm just the voice, I guess. We have looked at things like Elizabeth said, she contacted this city to see maybe they'd want to lease this front couple acres and maybe put play fields out there, put a soccer field or something out there. Didn't really go very far. They don't.
We had stopped at just,
Yeah.
I'm struggling to make those connections. Do you have those connections to these organizations?
Yeah, well, I'm thinking more creative than that. We've got several foundations that are connected to people here in the valley, and I know of some that have put $10+ million into facilities that are not yet built here in the valley. We had some big donors that kind of anchored us in our original fundraising. The ones I can think of don't belong to our church anymore, but I don't think they hate us. I think that opens the doors, and I know of other people that are quite well off that certainly know about us, and I've seen them worship here from time to time. Is there any thoughts of putting together a 1 or 2 page package and talk to them about a donation or paying off the mortgage, and maybe we develop some type of payback program with them that is on a sequence that is more amenable to what we can do?
We have talked about doing a capital campaign of sorts, and that's kind of a little bit longer term thing to come up with a campaign. And people don't want to just give money to give money. They want to give money for a cause or a reason, so to come up with the whole messaging, marketing, if you will, of that kind of a thing. It's
budget, what what would happen to the church?
Yeah, so Dean's question is, in the unlikely event that we end up running out of cash and we aren't meeting our budget month over month, what happens? So we have had that discussion, and we have another fund that's called the endowment fund here at Hope, and the endowment fund managers, I guess if you will, have said that they will loan Hope money out of the endowment fund to, quote, tide us over until something happens, like the land sale actually goes through or something like that. So we've talked about other things, that we hope we don't have to go to, but they're there should the need arise. We're doing the best we can.
No, I appreciate that. I was more on a catastrophic end, but the congregation doesn't agree to sell the land.
Oh, I
and
see.
now we have no more money, options.
Well, at that point, we have to take a very close look at our budget. And our budget really has a couple of main items in it: building and staff. And then there's programs and some other stuff in there. But those are like the majority of our budget. And so we would, as a congregation, would have to look at our budget and say, what do we cut? I mean,
We don't necessarily have a lot of things in play right now, but this is why we have other things that we're looking at. These are those, like I said, grant writing and internal giving. There's a lot of other things. Because again, even if we approve this isn't going to. I'd love to be able to bring something else to the congregation in March that we want to approve. So there's different scenarios that we're exploring of what to do, which again, small group discussions. Bring us the ideas, share us your thoughts, your concerns, because even if we sell this land, which is, it's high on that list of something that help us out financially, we still need to come up with other ideas as a congregation to other financial opportunities. So, I don't know if we necessarily have them all in play. But one of the things I've always loved about this congregation is this is a very, our congregation tends to lead from within itself, and we have a lot of really strong people that do a lot of really great stuff, and we come up with ideas that help us grow. And I really think we need to remember, we have a voice as a congregation for all of these ideas of how to really strengthen. My finances is one component of it, but as we strengthen ourselves and these talks and stuff in the morning, it's strengthening the finances. So I think we have a lot that we can do, and I think we all need to remember we have that voice and to use it, and to share your ideas and to share your skills. Very skilled, talented group of people. So just keep bringing it up to everybody.
And kind of on that same note too, Ken and I have belonged to many different congregations throughout our lives in Seattle area, Longview area, Great Falls. And I just really love being part of this church. And I love the fact that it's over 100 years old. And I love the fact that when we were studying the history of the church, that there was a pastor back in the beginning that called this church hopeless. And so what did our congregation do? They turned around and named the church Hope Lutheran. And I really want to thank you that worked on this land purchase, because your faith is now showing up big time. And I think along what Elizabeth was saying, this is a church that does move forward, that is looking at options, and I really, really appreciate that.
This will be the last time I talk. Okay, So I guess what the part I'm not understanding is that I feel like there's already a price that the church wants to, I understand that there's a $2 million mortgage, 2 million, all that. And what I'm not understanding is that the like hope that that's what you would get for the 5.4 acres or something? I guess that's my question. Could you talk about that?
Somebody grab me. When the financial committee brought this to us, we were given some information on what, the projecting what the possible prices of the different lots would be and how much it would bring in. The goal, I think, would be to completely pay off the mortgage, because if we don't completely pay off the mortgage, we pay it down, but it won't help us in our month-to-month budgeting, correct? Am I explaining that okay?
Right. Well,
we're not going to refinance the mortgage. The goal would be to pay off the mortgage, and actually refinance right now would not be a good idea because it'd be at a higher rate, so it wouldn't help us. So in order for the sale of the land to really be impactful to reducing our monthly shortfalls, it would be to completely pay off the mortgage. And that was one of the reasons it was presented. So again, there's still a lot of factors, but that's the goal, yeah, to cover the entire cost of the mortgage. At minimum. It'd be great if we had extra money to come in, but yeah, the goal would be to at the minimum pay off the mortgage.
Is the monthly shortfall very close to what we're saving having no mortgage? Is it right about that much, 20, 30,000?
I think on some months it's half.
So there's still a significant amount of monthly shortfall that has to happen continuously. Okay.
so just paying off that mortgage, so we don't have the $17,255 every month that we pay on it, it's going to get us closer. It's not going to get us, with our current rate of offerings, it's not going to meet exactly all of that. It'll get us closer.
Okay. So we should continue to give them a generous amount.
All of these other things still have to happen. These all still have to happen. This isn't a free pass to get out of doing what we need to do as a congregation. This is just extending the timeline.
Well, and even if maybe we sell both pieces, we get, $4 million or something. And we spend $2 million to pay off our mortgage here. We spend another $500,000 to pay off our mortgage on the parsonage. That gives us $1.5 million, maybe. If our offerings are still not meeting our budget, we're just going to draw down that money over time. And, some of that money actually has to go back to the endowment fund because they provided the down payment for the parsonage anyway. So, there's a lot of things going on. So, don't want to confuse everybody.
I think at this point, unless there's anybody else, we've been here a good chunk of time. If anybody else has any questions, okay, sure.
Amy handed me the microphone, so I spoke in November. My name is Travis Ballinger. My wife, Kari, and we've been members for about 14 years. And a couple of years ago, being a real estate broker, I saw the land in the front, I saw the land in the back, and I talked to my friend here, Clint, and we kind of talked about it, and we thought, if there was an emergency, if there was a need, there's a lot of value that is in the land. And so we talked about it, and then you contacted me and to rethink about this because of the need. And so in the last year, I've sold 4 different tracts of land as a real estate broker, 4 different tracts of land on 19th Avenue. And so using those comps and then using other people's comps, we were able to see that clearly the land is worth at least $2 million in the front, $2 million over here. But here's the challenge. So the first thing that I did was, when we investigated it, was we looked at could we do just a boundary adjustment? Could we just go talk to our neighbor and say, hey, would you buy this from us? And we could do that tomorrow, right, if they would want to. And we did the same thing. I contacted them, but guess what? Those are condominiums, and you'd have to have all 300 people agree to buy it, and it doesn't work, right? So then what's the next step? Well, then you have to go and be able to get the city to allow you to break it off from this chunk of land. And that's not an easy process. So I went ahead and I met with engineers, and I asked about the process and the cost, and maybe we have people internal that could assist, right? But developers, they have that avenue, and so the costs were around $150,000, to try to, just for the front land. And then you also have to build a road. That's a restriction. You have to connect the road, and so there are a lot of costs involved. And so then we thought, okay, well, wait a minute, how do we do this then? And so then what about the idea of just approaching developers and saying, hey, why don't we agree to sell you this land for this amount of money at a future date once you get it all permitted to sell? And would they do that? So I contacted some developers, and guess what? They wrote us up an offer to buy both pieces of land, and they sent it to us, and we had it, okay? But obviously we didn't ask for it, so we couldn't do anything with it. But we know that, yes, they are interested. They would buy that. They would front the costs of doing all that and pay for that. But guess what? It's not a quick solution. Okay? What they told me is it's about a year out. From the time you get a contract, it's about a year out before you actually get to do it, maybe even a year and a half. So it's not a quick solution. But say a year from now, say you get it under contract in April or May, it's about a year out. So you would need to use the endowment fund, which I'm a member of and Clinton's a member of, the endowment fund. You would use those proceeds to get you through to the sale. So anyway, I hope that answered whoever's question that was. So thank you.
Well, I would just encourage everybody to really, again, pray about this, pray about ideas and thoughts and your discernment, and come and be a part of those small group meetings. Dean is going to be leading those along with our council members. And so the dates up there are February 4th, 18th, and 13th via Zoom. We'll make sure we send those out in have flyers out so you can take those, but we'd really love to have you come with some ideas, some solutions, maybe some names, some addresses, your checkbook, whatever you want to bring. But just help us to think, where is God calling us? Where is God leading us in this place? Any last comments anybody would like to make today? Thank you so much for your time, for your prayerful consideration, and for being part of this amazing community of faith that God continues to do amazing things the last 100 years, and I think will continue to do the next 100 years. So with that, I'll pray from the booth. How's that? Gracious God, thank you for being with us, guiding our conversations. We ask that you would continue to stir in our hearts your vision for this place and what we can do and accomplish together. So we ask safe travel home and for more inspired and amazing ways to live out your light in this world. And for that, we thank you, and we say amen. Thank you again, everybody. Safe drive home. Hopefully it's not as slippery out there now. Drive safely.